We see an average of 700 to 800 people every single day. Sometimes there are people who come in when it's extremely cold, who won't come in when it's not so cold because they would prefer to stay outside in a tent or wherever. We buy a lot of food. That's why I said our budget is almost $9 million annually. Our utility bills are very, very expensive for electric, for water, for gas. These things are very expensive, and we buy food.
Have coats and shirts and pants and some sweaters for the people here.
Yeah. Because you can't give a person integrity. You can hand them food, you can give them a bed, you can give them a bed. That only helps a little bit. But what the person needs is to learn how to help themselves.
The home addresses of 31,000 registered sex offenders in Illinois are supposed to be listed on a state website, so you can see if they're in your neighborhood.
Trouble is, we found many of those addresses are flat out bogus. CBS 2's Megan Hickey investigates how so many could slip through the cracks.
So you had no idea that you had a registered sex offender living? I don't know.
This neighbor had no clue. How could she? The convicted sex offender in her Palatine apartment building registered this address in Chicago, which doesn't exist. 60606, that's the Willis Tower. His fake neighbor, who also registered a non-existent 60606 address, this man, who was convicted of sexually abusing a 16-year-old. When we tried looking for him under the correct zip code, we ended up here. Hello? He's not listed, but the address is less than 500 feet from an elementary school, which isn't allowed. Next stop, 69 West Washington, the Cook County Administration Building, and home to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. And according to Henry Lewis, it's his home, too. Suite 122.
So he says that he lives here. He's a sex offender, and he registered this address. Does anyone even live in this building?
No, this is all office building. That's all it is. Nobody lives here.
So, does that make any sense to you?
No, that don't make no sense at all.
And the security guard told me Suite 122, that's also fake. Here's a stumper. One offender got away with registering a P.O. box.
That's as close as it gets.
No surprise, we didn't find him there. Another offender lives on Hatred Street in Evanston. Nope, not a real street. So how are these addresses making the cut? We asked the Attorney General's office, and they referred us to Illinois State Police. Illinois State Police acknowledge that they maintain the database, but tell us the list is only as good as the data entered in by local law enforcement, the county sheriff, or the Illinois Department of Corrections. And those groups referred us back to ISP. ISP then goes as far as putting a disclaimer on its website warning that, quote, ISP makes no representation, express or implied, that the information contained on the registry is accurate. So that's when we took our questions to the U.S. Department of Justice.
A P.O. box would never be an acceptable address for a sex offender.
The director of SMART, the Sex Offender Sentencing, Monitoring, Apprehending, Registering, and Tracking Office, told us that to date, Illinois hasn't fully implemented federal guidelines for sex offender notification and registration. The red and yellow highlight problem areas. That's why the state's received a funding penalty every year since 2011. And some of the solutions to verifying addresses are pretty simple.
So you're saying it could be as easy as just Googling it?
It could be. I mean, we have so many great technological features these days. There's no reason why you can't just Google that house address and see that it's actually a house address versus a post office box.
One of the 17 states that does follow the federal guidelines is Ohio. So we asked their attorney general about it. He had a few critiques.
Illinois lacks a way to be able to consistently notify people by email or to update people that are interested.
He said notification and address verification have been priorities for the Buckeye State. They send postcards to verify that addresses are real.
It's not hard at all to send out a batch of postcards and see what comes back. This stuff is not hard to do. It's not especially expensive. I would just urge people to buckle down and get it done.
Meanwhile, residents are asking who else could be lying about where they live.
It's scary, because we have to take precautions,
Scariest of all, no one seems to know who's accountable for all these wrong addresses. Megan Hickey, CBS 2 News.
And we asked to speak with a representative from the Illinois Sex Offender Registry team through the Illinois Attorney General's office and state police. That request was denied. Megan will keep pushing on this.
Now, there is just not enough information to say a serial killer is responsible for killing and strangling 51 women. But until arrests are made in any of these cases, the victims' families will continue pushing. Each flyer a different name, each location a story of tragedy. Posted near the spot, a Chicago woman was found strangled and left for dead in alleys, abandoned lots, and trash cans.
This pole right here.
City sanitation workers found Ricardo Holyfield's cousin, Rio Renee, in a garbage bin last fall.
If something don't get done, it's going to get worse.
CBS 2 investigator Pam Zeckman has highlighted over 50 unsolved strangulation and asphyxiation murders that has some asking if it's the work of a serial killer.
People keep dismissing this because of these women's backgrounds.
Thomas Hargrove of the Murder Accountability Project identified a pattern dating back to 2001.
Disproportionately, these victims are women who have had a history of sex work and who have had a history of illegal drug use.
Clusters of women on the south and west sides found strangled, their bodies discarded outside, their cases still unsolved by Chicago police.
It is highly unlikely that these 50 women were murdered by 50 separate men.
Holyfield, his family, and volunteers vow to keep walking in the search for answers, not just for their loved one, but for all 50-plus women.
If we continue to allow this to happen, everybody gonna lose their family members.
And Superintendent Johnson has called for a review of all 51 of these cases to take a further look to see if there's any DNA that can be taken from these cases and if any links can be determined. We are live from Chicago Police Headquarters. Charlie DeMar, CBS 2 News. Brad and Erica.
All right, Charlie, thank you.
It's Canada's secret shame, an epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Indigenous women face a murder rate 6 times the national average.
Every time you come out to this river, do you wonder if you'll recover her body?
You come across remains and you don't know if they're human or not, or if they're your sister.
The UN has censured Canada for its ongoing failure to address the crisis.
The march is to send a message to the men who prey on them that they're being watched by the community.
We see what's going on, and we don't believe that our people deserve it.
These guys do not discriminate. They go after anybody and everybody.
Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is taking action.
Those touched by this national tragedy have waited long enough.
But after years of failure on the part of the police and the government, many here question if it could possibly go far enough to bring justice for the families and keep women safe.
It flashed through my mind that it could be a body that we were trying to pull up.
We're in Winnipeg, which is one of the most violent cities in Canada. It also has the largest urban Indigenous population in North America. And more Indigenous women have gone missing or been murdered here than anywhere else in the country.
The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, says nearly 1,200 Indigenous women have gone missing or been murdered across Canada since 1980. But advocacy groups put the figure far higher, at about 4,000 women. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's predecessor, Stephen Harper, largely dismissed the issue. Then, in 2015, Trudeau announced the creation of a 2-year national inquiry to examine the epidemic as part of what he called a total renewal of Canada's relationship with its Indigenous people. But the inquiry has been plagued by delays, resignations, and allegations of government interference. Many here feel it may be destined to fail.
I sat down with Rashida Jones, a producer of the film, to discuss how changing cultural norms have affected the industry. When you watch this film, or when you watch cuts of it, like, what was your relationship to what you were seeing? Did you want to pause and say, like, please stop, please don't do this? I found myself kind of wanting to do that at a number of points.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the filmmakers did a really good job of continuing to push your comfort level throughout the course of the film. I mean, not so much like, you know, they're very delicate about, actually, there's not really nudity in the film. I mean, there's maybe like one topless shot. Sorry, that's probably a disappointment for some people, but I wanted to understand the psychology of young women who would do this, and then what you kind of realize through the course of making the film is there isn't a psychology. It's not like there's one kind of girl who does this. Like, it's the cultural psychology which allows for like any girl to feel like it's a good choice. You know?
And what is that cultural psychology?
I think, you know, I've been vocal about the conflation of pop culture and pornography, and you know, I think it's like, it's no longer marginal, it's no longer subversive, it's no longer taboo to be in porn, to work in porn. And like, there's a lot that's good about that. But the bad side of that is that you just don't have a ton of information of how you get from point A to point B, which is a successful porn star. You know?
Okay, but there's a lot to unpack here. But let me push on the first part, right? Because there is a really interesting, very vibrant debate among feminists, particularly people online, about this question, right? About like, okay, we've removed the taboo. I think it's unquestionable we have removed a very significant societal taboo that used to hover around pornography.
Yes.
It has entered the mainstream. It's more accessible than ever. And there are people who say that taboo was a tool of the patriarchy that did all sorts of terrible things to people, and consenting, empowered adults can do what they want in labor contracts.
Yeah.
And there are some people who say, well, that taboo also had to do with like images of women that are part of the patriarchy, which is that are only valuable insofar as they are sex objects.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can't disregard the idea that pornography is part of the patriarchy when you see that 40% of porn is violent against women. Like, it's hard to argue against that.
To me, the most interesting aspect of this film was actually it as a documentary about capitalism in 21st century America and the way this industry has shifted. Because what's fascinating about porn is it is simultaneously ubiquitous and there's no money in it. Like, there's no real money in it. There's
not for the participants. There are women who are producing porn for women, they're directing porn for women, but it's a supply-demand thing. Like, lots of guys, it's mainly guys who watch and buy porn. So that's who they're going to make it for. You know, teen is the most searched word in porn. I don't think it's women who are searching the word teen.
Right.
I mean, maybe it is, but probably more men. I'm just speculating.
Right.
You know, so they're just giving the people what they want. I'm just, you know, what do they call it when it's like it's an educated guess. I don't know. But I think the patriarchy is so deeply institutionalized everywhere. It's not like you can't just pull one thing out. I like the intention of trying to co-opt things as empowering. I just worry that it's like sending a little bit of like a confusing message to young women.
When you think of sexual predators, you likely think of some creepy-looking guy who gets his thrills chasing little kids. Sure, men are the predominant offenders, but this crime is still perpetrated by both sexes. That's right, sexual predators come in all shapes and sexes. From the sweet elementary school teacher to that nice lady who lives across the street, these examples show that women can be just as terrible as men. Leah Shipman. When we hear about female sexual predators, they tend to usually involve a female teacher and her male students. Leah Shipman was one of these classic cases. In 2009, Shipman allegedly became involved with Johnny Ison, one of her students who was just 15 years old. When authorities found out, she was arrested and fired from her position. Yet in a twist, in 2011, she married Ison and the case against her was dropped. Why? Because under North Carolina law, a spouse cannot testify against their partner. Courtney Reschke. This mom is definitely one to avoid on Facebook. That's because in 2012, Courtney Reschke used social media to lure her own son's friends over to the house. Once there, she would get them drunk and engage in what were described as sex parties. Unfortunately for Reschke, the authorities tend to frown on adults who have sex with minors, and she was arrested. Initially pleading not guilty, this irresponsible mother of 3 later accepted a deal that will see her spend at least 3 years behind bars. Gemma Barker. As the case of Gemma Barker demonstrates, even women pretend to be someone else online in order to target victims. In 2009, Barker, just 19 at the time, used Facebook to meet 2 girls and convinced them she was a man. When the time to meet came, she went so far as to disguise herself as a man in order to engage in sexual activities. Hiding the fact that she was a woman, Barker kept everything a secret until she was recognized by one of the victims online. She is now serving a 2.5-year sentence for her crimes. Beth Modica. This 44-year-old was a former prosecutor and wife of the local police chief, not someone you'd typically expect to be a potential sex offender. Yet Modica took a liking to her son's classmates and one weekend engaged in sex with 2 of them. When the details later came out, it was revealed that she had also been involved in drug and alcohol-fueled activities with 5 other boys, all 15 and 16 years of age. In 2008, this disgraced mother was sentenced to 2 years in jail and 10 years probation.
It doesn't really matter if we're married. It doesn't matter if it was consensual. The law is what the law is.
The constitutional rights of a child, are far more paramount than the constitutional rights of a sexual predator.
The laws that are being passed are not making anybody safe.
Authorities say that California has the highest population of registered sex offenders.
They could be living right next door to you.
A sex offender, a predator, right there on your doorstep.
Megan's Law requires convicted sex offenders in California to register their names, home addresses, and other personal information on an online registry. It's supposed to make people aware of dangerous sexual predators in their communities.
I was convicted of a 288 C1, which is commonly known as statutory rape, the lewd and lascivious acts with a child.
This man is on the registry for statutory rape. He chose to remain anonymous to protect his family, so we'll refer to him as Joe. Joe is stuck on the registry for life, even though the alleged victim of his crime just so happens to be the woman who married him.
My parents found out about us being together, and my mom decided to press charges. It was all consensual and everything.
She was a minor, just shy of 16 at the time. Her then boyfriend went to jail and had to register as a sex offender for being with her. But they stayed together and even got married when he was released.
It was actually illegal for me to be anywhere near her for 3 years, but she waited for me, and I waited too.
This situation might sound extreme, but it's not that uncommon.
There's 2 consensual teenagers that are having sex, perhaps 19 and 15, a 19-year-old boy. That 19-year-old boy can go to prison and remain on the registry for the rest of his life.
Janice Bellucci is the California state organizer for Reform Sex Offender Laws Now. California is one of only 4 states with a lifetime registry, and Bellucci is trying to help offenders who she believes shouldn't be on it at all.
You can be put on the registry because you urinate in public. Children have been taken to jail for sexting, and they can be put on the registry.
Data from the California Department of Corrections shows that chances of a registrant reoffending are extremely low.
95% of the people on the registry never recommit a sex offense.
It's just asinine that the laws are what they are.
These days, somebody on the registry is being treated like a leper. And nobody wants to be around them, nobody wants to touch them, nobody wants to, be in their presence, breathe the same air that they're breathing.
Joe and his wife have to deal with nonstop harassment from those who see him listed on the registry.
I don't know if they're going to send somebody out there to kill us.
They did send somebody out there to beat me up.
We had to put a temporary restraining order on a neighbor.
While Joe and his wife feel that their punishment is too harsh and undeserved, law after law continues to be passed, only making things more difficult. Mission Viejo is the most recent of many cities in Orange County adopting tougher measures for California registrants this year.
Crimes against the child is unforgivable.
Councilwoman Kathy Schlicht introduced an ordinance banning sex offenders from public parks and beaches without permission from the county sheriff. It was passed unanimously.
We're not thinking from a logical and rational place. Instead, we're acting from fear.
There's always been stories, especially this summer, about child predators in the area. So it was like, there isn't any need to further study the issue, let's move forward.
And it's always terrible when a child is assaulted. There's no doubt about that. But the fact is, we need to be very careful in the laws that we pass. We need to be surgically precise in the laws that we pass.
If there's a constitutional issue, it will be handled through the courts of law, but in the meantime, let's get the legislation or the ordinance in place.
Most of these crimes are actually, and I'm talking about the sexual assault of children, occur in the home.
This is true for the very case that prompted Schlicht to pursue the ordinance.
About 10 years ago, a child was kidnapped and murdered in Orange County. Her name was Samantha Runyon. She was abducted, I believe, from her home.
This new ordinance, combined with previous California laws, make it difficult for sex offenders to find anywhere to live.
Registered sex offenders are not allowed to live within 2,000 feet of a school or a park. And so the unintended consequences of that is that a lot of them have become homeless. And so they are congregating in parks because there isn't anywhere else for them to go.
They can't live within those areas, and then they can't go to the parks. Was there any consideration for where they would go after that?
Maybe they become prisoners in their own home, but it's a law that they have to live with.
Anybody who's been in prison, when they come out of prison, we want them to be rehabilitated and we want them to be productive citizens. It doesn't make any sense, and it does not serve society well for them to be jobless and homeless.
Joe and his wife now live in a trailer park, and Joe hasn't been able to find a stable job since he had to register. Because they live in California, Joe's status as sex offender is permanent.
We're together, we're married. He did everything he was supposed to do, and it's sad to live this way.
There have been some efforts to reform California's draconian laws. This past January, Assemblymember Tom Amiano introduced a bill for a tiered registry.
What we have in California is a one-size-fits-all, and it's very counterproductive. If you really want to effectively pursue and prosecute the most horrendous crimes, you are cheating that process by wasting these very scarce resources and enforcement mechanisms.
Opponents to the law worried that reforming the registry would allow serious sex offenders to slip through the cracks if there was even the possibility of getting off the registry.
People are being timid around an issue like this and immediately think if in any way you step up to the plate and say maybe we should do this better or differently, that they would be accused of being pro-sex offender.
What we are asking our lawmakers to do is to stop and think. Don't act from emotion, stop and think. Look at who are the dangerous people. Where do these incidents occur, these attacks occur, and let's target legislation there.
The lawmakers didn't listen. Amiano's bill was defeated 41-19. And for now, the registry will remain clogged with relatively minor offenders who face humiliation and threats every day of their lives.
I'm scared all the time. I'm worried. Maybe sometime in the future there could be something that can be done, possibly, for our situation.
This is shocking. Check out this metro area map, and under all these icons, Denver, Lakewood, and Wheat Ridge, and each icon represents where sex offenders live. And a recent alert by Denver police made us realize that some of the most serious sex offenders don't even have an address. 7 News reporter Marshall Zellinger is live in downtown Denver, and Marshall, no address is really no problem.
And that's what really got us interested in this area where I'm standing right now, because of this notification by Denver police about this sexually violent predator who listed his address here, literally here, transient, homeless in the 1100 block of Park Avenue West. And it got me wondering how sex offenders are monitored if they're listed homeless.
This is a very popular block for them to register people transient.
The area near the Denver Rescue Mission is always busy, for good reason. There are homeless services here. And according to this Denver Sex Offender Registry, there are 41 sex offenders who list this area, the 1100 block of Park Avenue West, as their homeless home.
It's kind of one of those catch-22s. You may not want them next door to you in the home or apartment, but we also don't want them, homeless on the streets.
It's very dangerous because there's a lot of women out here.
Nikki Doherty lives nearby. We showed her this notification about a sexually violent predator moving here, listing himself homeless. It turns out there was another sexually violent predator also registered homeless here. He was rearrested in May, accused of attempted murder and attempted sex assault on the Auraria campus. By definition, sexually violent predators are likely to reoffend.
You should have an ankle bracelet on to track your whereabouts, even if you're done with your time, because you still have the chance to do it again.
The only requirements are that they register. You can't mandate somebody to have a home.
Chris Labanov-Rostovsky works with the Sex Offender Management Unit. He tells us homeless sex offenders are required to register with the local police department every month. Sex offenders who have homes only check in 4 times a year.
They're expected to tell law enforcement where they're staying, and if they're not staying there, they're in violation of their requirements to register, and they can be charged with that as a failure to register charge.
On this map, we're right here. When Denver police make notifications like this, they warn people about where the local parks are. Here, this green area, and here. There's also a school at Tremont there. But I found out that it depends on the city. There's no state law on restrictions of sex offenders. And in Denver, once a sex offender has been off parole and probation and served their sentence, there is no restriction on where they can live. Reporting live, Marshall Zellinger, 7 News.